Hello everyone, welcome back to Believers IAS Academy. This is the 400 plus GS series for mains. Today will be the last video in the committee series. We will finish it off the committee series with GS-3. So yesterday we did GS-3 till science and technology. So today we will start with environment and ecology, do the disaster management and finish it off. So the first committee with respect to environment and ecology, and the subtopic is Western Ghats Ecology Expert Panel. Okay, that is WGEEP. It was also called as Gadgil Committee. The context was it studied ecological status of Western Ghats and proposed a protection framework. The important recommendations were classify the area into ecologically sensitive zones 1, 2, 3. Ban mining, polluting industries, large dams in ecological sensitive zone 1. Promote organic farming and ecotourism. And finally, empower Grama Sabhas in decision making. This was one of the important recommendations. That is, empowering the Grama Sabha, which was focusing on decentralized decision. Okay, next. The next important committee was high level working group called as Kasturi Rangan Committee. It reviewed Gadgil report on the report to balance ecology with development, and the recommendations were identify 37% of Western Ghats as ecological sensitive areas, ban red category industries and mining in ecological sensitive areas, permit eco-friendly agriculture and plantations, and finally regulated hydropower and sustainable tourism. This Kasturi Rangan and Gadgil committee were recently in news. In news because of Wayanad landslide. Okay, in Wayanad there was a landslide. Many of the people were citing the excessive tourism, development, and construction to be the reasons behind Wayanad flooding or Wayanad landslide. And many of the news channels went straight to Gadgil. He is a person who is still alive, and they went to Gadgil committee reports and they went to interview Gadgil, and then he said that what I envisioned was for considering all the ecological sensitive Western Ghats as ecological sensitive zone 1 and to avoid the happenings what happened in Wayanad. But as recommendations were not considered. So it was in news. So just have an idea about this and use these recommendations whenever you write an answer with respect to Western Ghats. Next is National Biodiversity Authority. It is a statutory body under Biological Diversity Act of 2002. Its important work and the regulation recommendations are regulate access to biological resources, ensure fair benefit sharing, support state biodiversity boards and BMCs, that is biological management committees, and notify biodiversity heritage sites. These are important works of National Biodiversity Authority. Next is biodiversity management committees. These are at the third level or lower level of biological diversity. So, local level conservation bodies under the Biodiversity Act. Their role is prepare people's biodiversity registers, promote local conservation measures, prevent biosphere piracy, and liaise with state biodiversity authority and national biodiversity authorities. Okay, so this is the importance of biodiversity management committees. And the next important authority or the body under biodiversity conservation is National Board for Wildlife Conservation, that is NBWL. It is apex wildlife conservation body under the Wildlife Protection Act. The roles and recommendations are approve or divert projects affecting the protected areas, recommend creation of sanctuaries or national parks, frame species conservation plans, and finally monitor wildlife protection enforcement. All these things are the recommendations or the work or the functions of National Board for Wildlife. National Board for Wildlife, it is headed by Prime Minister as the ex officio chairperson. Okay, so very important. Do not confuse this National Board for Wildlife with Biodiversity Institute. Biodiversity Institute. It is a different one compared to National Board for Wildlife. Next, with respect to pollution control and environmental degradation, the committee is Marshall-Kerr Committee on Auto Fuel Policy of 2002. It provided a roadmap for clean fuels and vehicular emission standards. The recommendations were implement Bharat stage emission norms, very important. So this Mashalkar committee, based on the recommendations of Mashalkar committee, we have Bharat stage norms, and at present we are using Bharat stage 6 norms, which was basically based on European standards. So where it restricts certain vehicular emission from the vehicles. Promote CNG and LPG in public transport, develop alternate fuel infrastructure, and support research and development in green vehicle technology. So these are some of the recommendations of Marshall-Kerr Committee, and the recommendations have been implemented by the Government of India. Then TSR Subramaniam Committee on Environmental Laws, very important committee. It reviewed environmental laws for efficiency and compliancy. The recommendations are merge multiple clearance authorities into National Environmental Management Authority or State Environmental Management Authority. Fast track clearances for strategic projects. Strengthen post clearance monitoring and establishing Indian Environmental Service, similar to Indian Administrative Service or Indian Police Service. Okay, so they wanted Indian Environmental Services to deal with environmental issues. Next is with respect to environmental impact assessment and governance. The important committees or the important bodies are Expert Appraisal Committee or EAC under Ministry of Forest, Ministry of Environment and Forest and Conservation. So context is appraise EIA reports and terms of reference for major projects. The key recommendations are enforce compliance with legal and technical norms, requires interstate clearance for shared resources, defer or reject projects with unresolved ecological issues, and integrate long-term monitoring plans. All these things were recommended by expert appraisal committee. Okay, next EIA reform recommendations. So there was a review of this EIA process, and the recommendations were expand coverage of EIA to more project types, strengthen public participation and local language access. In environmental impact process, there are various stages are there. First is screening, scoping, and then there is public consultation, followed by environmental impact clearance. Okay, so this clearance is provided only after the public consultation. However, in the various EIA rules, this public consultation was not provided very much importance. So this recommendation process or reform process said that public participation and local language access should be strengthened, and independent accreditation for EIA consultants, and penalties for non-compliance with the clearance conditions. So very strict recommendations or compliance methods are provided under this reform recommendations. Next is environmental laws consolidation proposal. It suggested single window environmental clearance, created NEMA at national level, SEMA at state authorities, and merged CPCB and SPCB roles. Introduce environmental reconstruction cost levy, and strengthen environmental tribunal for dispute resolution. So this levy is a sort of tax on environmental reconstruction cost. Next, with respect to disaster management, committees, subcommittees with respect to preparedness and mitigation. So, High Powered Committee on Disaster Management under the leadership of J.C. Pant. These recommendations may be old but are very relevant even to this day. First, national level review of India's disaster readiness. The recommendations were shift focus from relief to prevention, preparedness, and mitigation. Integrate disaster risk reduction into all development plans. Create a central disaster management body and build local capacity through training and awareness. All these things were recommended by J.C. Pant Committee. These recommendations can still be very relevant considering the recent flash floods in the Uttarakhand and Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, next is K.C. Pant Committee on Disaster Management in 2011. 1. Strengthen policy post Orissa cyclone of 2001. set up national and state disaster management authorities, create specialized disaster response force, implement early warning systems, and allocate mitigation budget in every ministry. So very important recommendations under the chairmanship of JC Pant again. Next is technical committee on earthquake engineering. Aim is to address urban earthquake vulnerability. The recommendations are enforce earthquake resistance building codes, retrofit critical public infrastructure, train engineers, masons, and architects, and public earthquake safety campaigns. So these recommendations are still relevant to this day because we are increasingly seeing urban disasters such as floods and droughts. So these recommendations are necessary and relevant in current context as well. You can quote these recommendations in your answers. Next is post-disaster response recovery. The important committee or the important bodies here is National Disaster Management Authority. It is the apex decision-making body established under the Disaster Management Act of 2005. So it is a statutory body. It functions are National Disaster Management Plan creation, issues guidelines for all kinds of hazards, coordinates center state district response, and integrate technology in relief and rehabilitation. Okay. Next is National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project Steering Committee. Strengthen cyclone readiness and post impact recovery. The recommendations are build cyclone shelter, strengthen embankments, improve evacuation infrastructure, and promote disaster literacy among the communities. So these are some of the key recommendations of National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project Steering Committee. Next is APJ Abdul Kalam Task Force on Indian Ocean Disaster Management. Very important since it has the name of APJ Abdul Kalam. The context was improving regional cooperation post 2004 Boxing Day tsunami which occurred in the Indian Ocean. Okay, so recommendations were set up early warning system for tsunami, strengthen satellite based monitoring, regional disaster response agreements, and training local volunteer networks. So the disaster of 2004 tsunami was so massive that it resulted in deaths of almost 2 lakh people worldwide. Of this, 30 to 40,000 people were from India, especially from the states of Tamil Nadu. Okay, so this disaster exposed lack of readiness to such mass scale disasters in India. Okay, next, hazard specific committees. R.K. Raghavan Committee on Coastal Security. The context is protecting the coastal communities from disaster and security threats. Recommendations are coastal police stations and marine commando units, modernize coastal community equipment, fishermen engagement for real-time alerts, and finally, integrated disaster security protocols. Next is Balian Committee for Fire Safety in Schools. This is going to be very important for this year's mains, especially considering the recent fire hazards in Surat, fire hazard in Telangana industry. So this recommendation becomes important. It was triggered by a Kumbakonam school fire tragedy. The recommendations were enforce fire safety norms in schools, install alarms, extinguishers, and emergency exits, regular fire safety drills, and teacher training in fire response. So this can be expanded to all the other areas such as office, such as malls, etc. etc. Next is Goswami Committee on Flood Management. This was addressing the recurring floods in northeastern India. The recommendations were strengthen embankments and dredge rivers, interstate water release coordination, promote watershed management, and real-time flood forecasting systems. Very important recommendations can be used with respect to even the urban floods as well. Next is with respect to internal security. Very important, especially GS-3 and this year's mains. These committees are going to be very important, so do make a note of these committees. The committee is Kargil Review Committee, or also called as K. Subramanian Committee of 1999. The context, it assessed lapses during the Kargil conflict. Recommendations were strengthen intelligence coordination, establish defense intelligence agency, create chief of defense staff, and improve border surveillance infrastructure. Based on these recommendations, now we have Chief of Defense Staff is being established post these recommendations. Next, Naresh Chandra Task Force on National Security. You can use these committees in quoting your answers. It reviewed post-Kargil reforms. The post-Kargil reforms of K. Subramaniam were reviewed by Naresh Chandra Task Force Committee. The recommendations were establishing Special Operational Command, strengthen tri-service integrations, that is Navy, Army and Air Force. Next is revamp defense procurement process and develop national security doctrine. These have been implemented by the government of India. And then Raghavan Committee on Coastal Security. The context was strengthen coastal defense post Kunda and Mumbai incidents. Recommendations were set up coastal police stations, modernize surveillance and communication, coordinate with fishermen for intelligence, and joint drills with Navy and Coast Guards. So these recommendations were implemented, however, they were not successful in avoiding the 2008 Mumbai blast or Mumbai attacks. Next is Shekhar Committee on Defense Reforms. Aim is optimizing defense expenditure for security needs. Rationalize non-combat organizations, improve broader infrastructure, increase technology use in surveillance, and finally integrate paramilitary training with defense forces. Very important recommendations by Shekhar Committee. Next is with respect to policing and criminal justice. This has been in news recently because Supreme Court was dealing with policing reforms in India. So this becomes very important for your mains this year. The important committee are Shah Commission on Police Reforms. The context was improve police accountability and efficiency. The important recommendations are establish state security commissions, fix police tenure to prevent political interference, separate investigation from law and order duties, and finally upgrade police forensic facilities. Forensic facilities in India are very nascent in stage. They need some upgradation compared to the rest of the world. Next, Padmanabhaya Committee on Police Reforms 2000. Overhaul policing for modern threats. The recommendations are increase police to population ratio. It is still one of the issues in India. The police to population ratio is skewed in favor of population. Then strengthening intelligence at the local level, enhance training in cybercrime and terrorism, and improve coordination between central and state agencies. Very important recommendations which can still be relevant. Next is Madhav Gadabole Committee on Reforming Criminal Justice System in 1999. The criminal justice system, as I told you, is in news because Supreme Court is dealing with this case. So recommendations becomes very important for you. Reforming criminal justice for better internal security was the context under which this committee was constituted. The recommendations were speedy trials for terror and organized crimes, strengthen witness protection, modernize police force, and use technology for crime tracking. Very important recommendations. Next is Justice Malimat Committee for Criminal Justice Reforms. Make justice system more effective and tackling crimes and terrorism. Recommendations were introduce victims justice or victims right charter. Very important recommendations and very innovative in nature. Allow admissibility in certain confessions. Normally the confessions are not admissible in the court. However, this particular case provided for admissibility in certain confessions. Strengthen forensic infrastructure and speed up trial process. All these things are important recommendations provided by Malimat Committee. Next is with respect to cyber security and financial security. The important committees are National Cyber Security Policy, which was a 2013 drafting committee. Context was protect cyberspace from the threats. Recommendations were create National Critical Infrastructure in Protection Center, that is NCIIPC, which has been implemented post this 2013 draft committee. Promote indigenous cybersecurity solutions so that we are not dependent on other countries. Develop skilled cyber workforce to deal with increasing cyber technologies and cyber threats. Strengthen certain mandate. Okay. Next, Financial Action Task Force like India related compliance reviews. Addressing money laundering and terror financing. This FATF is the brainchild of G7. However, this FATF has provided certain recommendations with respect to India. The recommendations were enforce KYC and suspicious transaction reporting, strengthen financial intelligence unit, improve interagency information sharing, and enhance cross-border cooperation. All these recommendations were provided by FATF. And final committee of the day as well as GS-3 topic is with respect to defense and national security strategy. Committee is TSR Subramaniam Committee on National Security. We already discussed this before, but again, with respect to national security strategy. Draft national security policy framework, and the important recommendations are integrate security planning with development. Next, strengthen counterinsurgency operations using technology in border management and developing rapid response forces. All these are very important recommendations, and these can be used in your answers in this year as well. So this ends the GS3 committees. With this, we'll finish off the committee sections, and from tomorrow we'll discuss important data points and examples which can be used in your mains answers. We'll also bring a dedicated video where we are going to decode economic survey and union budget. We'll decode economic survey and union budget and note down all the important things that can be used in your answer, okay, for 2025 mains. So stay tuned for new videos. With this, I will end the video. With this, I'll be ending today's video, and if you like the video, then please hit the like button, comment on it, and also share with the friends. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and also click on the bell icon so that you don't miss any notification. With this, I will end the video. Jai Hind.